Welcome to the Upshot, Multi-World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I'm the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me, as always, is Josh Mansfield. It is Thursday, August 4th. It's August, Josh. It's kind of blowing my mind. Like, I feel like the summer is getting away from me. You know what? Here's what I got to tell you something I did this week.
Okay.
I live 10 minutes, 15 minutes by train from Yankee Stadium.
Okay.
It's a little longer, for maybe 45 minutes for me to get out to Citi Field where the Mets play. But this week, I did not go to those games. I took the train all the way to Coney Island, and I went to a Brooklyn Cyclones game, the high A affiliate for the Mets. And what a scene, man. I sat 4 rows behind a home plate, got a hat, chicken tenders, fries, and a drink, and my ticket, all that, $20.
If you love sports,
Minor league baseball,
go to the minor leagues.
So good.
Go to any minor league affiliate hockey 10 times. Like I've been to NHL games, they're good, but like I love semi-pro sports. I think they're so much fun. You don't have to pay a lot of money, and you get to be up close to the action. I love it. So I'm with you on that one. Good.
Yeah,
there
was some good drama too. The Cyclones went down 4-1. They got a little rally going to the bottom of the ninth, and they scored a run, and they had 2 on, and they had their best hitter, like the number 4 prospect in the Mets system, at the plate.
Wow. Who's
just been raking with a chance to be the go-ahead run at the plate, and he struck out. Come on, man. Anyway, good times. So we've got a Silver Series on deck this weekend, the Mid-America Open. We'll talk a little bit about that and make our picks a little bit later on in the show. And we're going to begin today with kind of a smorgasbord mailbag. Not specific to any one thing. We kind of dug back through the inbox a little bit, and we've got a bunch of fun topics to get to. We're also going to be introducing a new segment today. We'll tell you about it after our break following the mailbag. So, Josh, let's dive right in. I'm going to go ahead and grab a piece of mail for you. And I love this one. Okay. This one just came in. This one comes from Jacob. And Jacob says, do American crowds applaud too much? I'm watching the D-Glow final round lead card, and it feels like every bad shot or putt I've seen, at least on the first few holes, gets some applause. It's not enthusiastic by any means, but it's enough that it feels out of place, especially after watching the European Open, where the crowd would stay relatively silent for bad shots, with the exception of maybe a groan or something. I feel like I've heard players mention crowds clapping on bad shots as well, but it was something that stuck out to me this morning. Josh, what do you think? Do you think the American crowds are a little too eager to please?
Yes, they are. Without a doubt. Like, not only it's excusable when they clap because they don't realize that it wasn't a good shot, right? You know, it's a blind or it just slides past the OB line and they think it's parked on the green or whatever. Like that makes sense. That happens. But Americans will realize something bad happened, and then they'll all kind of just really tentatively clap a little bit. It's oh, it's okay. Don't worry. We're still, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. Stop. And Jacob's right. We've had pros say, I hate that you never know if you throw a good shot anymore because players or the fans will clap for everything. It's weird. I'm glad that Europe doesn't do that and that they're a little more reserved. It doesn't surprise me, to be completely honest, but I don't know where that came from.
You know who's doing the clapping for bad shots, Josh? The people who bring their bags to the course.
Welcome to the Upshot, where our goal is to alienate a specific subsection of disc golf fans.
No, I agree with the sentiment here. If somebody misses a putt, just don't clap. I don't know. If someone taps in for double bogey, don't clap. They don't want to be clapped for. I think I don't know if this is something that's going to be easily solved, but I do think people just need to relax and make clapping be a thing that happens when you're truly impressed by a shot. That's when it makes it fun and cool, and it's good for the player, and it feels good on the broadcast. Like when you hear a smattering of clapping when it's a poor shot, it's like, What we got next, Josh?
Yeah. Next up is kind of a double whammy. This comes from both Bailey and Hawk. Bailey sent this a while ago, but resent the email given what happened at D-Glow, and then Hawk as well. They said that they asked about Natalie Ryan and the fact that she does not have a major manufacturer. If you've listened to our Wednesday show, we talked to her a little bit about that. But, Bailey notes that she's passionate, she's confident, she's exceptional at disc golf, she's polite, which all things very, very true. And he says, why does she not have a sponsorship? And Hawk asks, now that she's got an Elite Series win, does that sponsorship opportunity come along? Charlie, what are your thoughts?
Well, let's be honest. I don't think that the disc manufacturers are particularly willing to stick their neck out there when it comes to being, sort of like politically active or doing much of anything to potentially offend or alienate anyone. I think it's an understandable position. Disc golf has a very diverse set of political opinions and customers across the categories, right? It's not like you have a very specific customer base that's concentrated in a particular, sort of political spectrum, and you don't care if you piss off some group of people. As a result, I do think that it may be more difficult for Natalie to get a sponsorship commensurate to her skill level as it would be for another player. Like, is Innova going to go out and sign Natalie Ryan? I mean, I guess it would be cool if I was proved wrong, but I just don't see it. I think that it's like there's a sense that it's like risky or that it's going to piss people off and they're going to stop throwing your brand or whatever, which, it's weird because the kinds of stuff that gets tolerated and that people get sponsored for is crazy compared to somebody being transgender. But like, that's just how it seems to go in disc golf. Like, there's not a lot of courage from the manufacturers in terms of like talking about political issues or trying to push for more diversity in the sport. Like, it's like real dip the toe in the water stuff. I think the PDGA and the Pro Tour particularly are way better about this stuff. Way better. Like, the Pro Tour again this week, like, reiterated the like clarity around expectations around how people talk about Natalie Ryan and transgender players in the sport, and sent out an email that was like, here's the position, here's the rules of the PDGA, we will not tolerate hate speech, etc. I haven't seen any of the manufacturers say anything ever about any of these topics. And whatever, I get it. To some extent, I get it. But I do think it's going to be more difficult for Natalie to get a sponsorship. Some larger manufacturer will probably take a chance. But like, do we really think it's going to be DD, who she said that she throws the most discs for, in her bag right now? Nah, man.
Well, I mean, these companies are out. They're companies. They're out to make money. And welcome to the sports world and the corporate world, where your signs of inclusion and statements about difficult issues go so far as to be mainstream enough that it looks good, and the majority of people are going to support it, but not to alienate your base, right? When Nike puts a rainbow colored background on their Facebook logo, yeah, you probably get 5% of people who are like, I'm never going to buy Nike again because of it.
But that's not their customers.
Right. But that's not their customers anyway. And it's the topic of like LGBTQ plus community should have rights, and representation is not that's not controversial. That's yes, they should have rights. They should be treated like regular human beings. The problem is that I don't know what the purchasing base, the customer base of these companies, general opinion is towards trans women in FPO. And I don't think they do either. And as long as that's the case, then like you said, that risk that's associated with it, I think is going to outweigh the benefits that they see of signing that.
At least a perceived risk.
Exactly.
Whether or not there actually is risk.
Yes. Yeah. So, Bailey, I think everything you said is absolutely right. But I mean, I think we all know why a big disc manufacturer is going to be slow to do so.
All right, we got an email from someone named Steve. Long time, first time, he says. His last name's Hill. I'm not sure if I know who that is, but listening to the mailbag segment about European Open and how they don't charge for spectating, it's my take that this is a philosophical choice on behalf of the organizers. They're playing the long game and helping grow the player and audience base. The number of kids at this event was incredible. Hordes and hordes of juniors shouting, "Igle, Igle," and clamoring for autographs. I saw a group of kids roll up on their bikes one day to watch. I don't think the parents bring all those kids or let them go unsupervised if there is an admission fee. By letting spectators in for free, it gets them hooked on disc golf long term by being able to experience the joy of an elite level tournament. Plus, you should have seen the lines at the pro shop. They're making up for it. That said, I think a solid middle ground would be to charge a VIP-style fee for access to the wooded holes across the street, which is 4 through 8 and 12 through 14, a la MVP Open. That generates some revenue and helps with crowd control if they can gate ingress and egress. It was refreshing to be over there as an American and simply see people enjoy something without having to pay an entry fee. Think about how big some of the crowds would be stateside if events were still open like Charlie's beloved Peoria in 2019.
I think this hits it on the head. Exactly kind of what we were talking about in terms of the revenue makeup that selling pro shop or concessions has the opportunity to make plenty in revenue for tournaments that choose to take this approach. And that's the one thing I didn't consider a lot is that, the kids come for free. And I think there are some advertising opportunities. If you were to take and advertise and take flyers to high schools or to local areas, you probably could get a lot of youth participation and coming and watching this event that you may otherwise not get with a fee. I think it's also easy to advertise. There are plenty of local community newsletters, calendars, city calendars, Facebook groups for events and goings on in your neighborhood, and I think there is some value in being able to say, hey, come check this out, it's a free event that is only held in 20 cities across the country, and we're lucky enough to be one. And I think you can get that kind of participation. I really love the story about the kids coming and wanting the autographs, and that's something I noticed actually on the broadcast was just how many kids there were up at the front. It wasn't just 25-year-old guys looking to get the signatures.
Yeah, I mean, I get the idea, but I think I stand by what I said last time, which is that I think you might be surprised on the upside about how many people still show up and how many kids still show. I mean, you want to have, if a parent buys a ticket, kids get in free. I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can do this while still creating revenue that can go towards the event or payout or whatever. And if the kids know who Eagle is, they want to go to it's not like they're just random kids rolling up. I don't know. Having kids get in free, I think it's a great idea. That's the kind of thing that we should be encouraging in the U.S. too. Having adults have to pay. I mean, how many people are not going to show up because they have to pay 10 euros? I just think that that's a vanishingly small number, and that the upside for selling tickets is a lot bigger than the downside of having a few fewer people show up. The concept of VIP tickets, sure, but maybe they have to actually enforce VIP tickets, which apparently doesn't happen at any of these events right now. Hello? Disc Golf Pro Tour, hello, you can't sell VIP tickets and then let everybody go to the VIP zone.
Yeah.
That's going to make people upset.
Yeah, that's the fastest way to not sell VIP tickets next year.
Come on, man. All right, what's next, Josh?
So next email comes from a listener who asked to stay anonymous, actually. So this listener says that, and I'm not going to say what event it was, but he went and volunteered to be a UDisc scorekeeper. And he'd never kept score at a pro event, so he was paired with and he puts this in quotes, experienced scorekeeper. And he found out in the first 2 holes that experience means very little when it comes to accurate stat keeping. When I asked my partner whether I should correct him if he input any incorrect information, my partner stated, "Stats don't matter. I only care about keeping score." I hope the situation where a score stat keeper does not care about keeping correct stats is not widespread. But there were multiple instances where my scorekeeping partner marked a 45-foot putt as a tap-in or a 15-foot putt. And then he mentions that disc golf is still at a place where pro events rely on volunteers. So stats are probably not going to be very accurate until we get a bigger emphasis placed on that. We've talked. Go ahead, Charlie. I'll let you answer it first.
I mean, I think most people do a pretty good job, but I do think there's real variance here. And I do think that there's times where whoever's keeping stats on UDisc is doing a bad job. Like you see it every event. Mm-hmm. Either it's too slow or it's obviously wrong, or people keep marking like throw-ins from 200 feet when it was just a 30-foot putt. It happens. And unfortunately, the solution in my mind is that, you need to have this be something that is taken like a little bit more seriously. Like you shouldn't just have like random Joe Schmo go out with the card, get a 10-second tutorial and like, okay, good luck, slap them on the butt and say, get out there. I think, you need to have people get paid. It doesn't have to be like a big thing, but like you have them paid, you have a 30-minute session of like learning about the thing, watch a little tutorial video about estimating the distances or whatever. And like, I don't really know whose responsibility that should be. Should it be UDiscs? Should it be the pro tours? I think it just depends on how you set that up. But I do think that trying to get accurate stat keeping is going to be increasingly important. And it's definitely hit or miss right now.
Yeah.
I think the challenging part is that, UDisc is not making their money from UDisc live coverage. Like that's a marketing tool for the thing that makes them money, which is the app. Mm-hmm. And so like they don't really have a ton of incentive to try to like make this absolutely the best that it can possibly be. And I mean, I know for a fact it's like just really hard to like get people who are willing to go out and do it. Like even if you offered money, how much would you have to offer to make it worth it? And then you need however many people, 50 people or something. It gets expensive. I don't know. To me, it's like a pro tour thing.
I agree. I think that it is on the pro tour to fund and get this going. I will say though, I think there's actually a real opportunity to increase the professionalization and engagement with the sport by doing so. If you had a guy or gal or someone following a card who, let's say they had an iPad with the hole, and because you can mark, on UDisc now where your disc lands, and you can mark that on your map for your own personal rounds. Imagine you get a guy with an iPad who just marked where all 4 discs landed, and then that was a graphic that could be readily pulled up by the Pro Tour. I mean, I know we're talking future stuff, but it's something we've talked about and could really, really increase the graphics, professionalization, and just statistics behind the sport. And I think is probably one of the next couple of steps that the Pro Tour needs to take.
And you're leaving out the most important thing of all, which is that for now it would still be estimate, but like you would be able to start to get distances on every shot. Nothing annoys me more than not being able to see every shot like in a sequence. Like when I see that somebody missed a circle 1 putt and then they, it's like the little 2. I want to know where they missed the first putt from. Did they miss it from 10 feet? Did they miss it from 20 feet? Like these are things that can be created and can exist. And what you're talking about is totally right. You got an iPad, you click the thing, like, it's got like various reference points on it, right? The big tree, the rock, the this, and you estimate, you click, and it says, okay, that was a 475-foot shot, and you're at this spot in the fairway, and you can then, once it pops up, it says like fairway, off the fairway, obstructed, lie,
OB.
whatever, right? Like you can do more to be descriptive about the shots too. It's not just clean or OB or fairway off the fairway. It's like obstruction or clean window or whatever. I mean, there's all kinds of things we could talk about here, but this is clearly the next thing we need, right? It's nice to be able to get how far putts are coming from, but with an accurate hole map, which already exists in many cases, and
didn't at the U.S. Women's Championship.
The basic thing you're talking about exists literally in UDisc already. You can say, this is where I landed.
Yeah.
And so this is the kind of thing that needs to, and you're totally right. Like you could then create graphic, which you would be able to pull up on the screen and like see where everybody's disc is on the fairway. Of course, what you're describing would require an even more skilled volunteer / worker.
Staff.
Yes.
Yeah.
But, for the beginning stages of something like that, you would just send out one of the UDisc people on lead card to do it specifically for the broadcast on the lead card.
Great.
Love the idea. All right. Next up here. All right. I want to do this one from Chris. Chris says, I love watching live disc golf, but DGN is killing their ability to attract and retain viewership by doing this one thing. This one weird trick. Putting a huge gap, often more than 2 hours, between the end of FPO coverage and the start of MPO coverage. Think about the most popular sports viewing experiences in the U.S., NFL football and the NCAA men's basketball tournament. And that's actually true. March Madness, the second most watched sporting event behind the Super Bowl, and a lot of NFL football games. On NFL Sunday, those of us on the East Coast can plop ourselves down on the sofa in front of our TV at 10 a.m., get 3 hours of pregame analysis before the first game starts, and then from 1 p.m. to 11 p.m. watch nonstop NFL game coverage. I rarely do that. I suspect only the diehard NFL junkies do so on a regular basis, but my point is that on Sundays during the NFL season, there is almost no point between 1 and 11 where there is not live football coverage happening. On Elite Series weekends, sometimes I'd like to plant myself in front of a screen and watch uninterrupted disc golf, but I can't. Even though there is live disc golf taking place and the course is full of players, DGN shuts down coverage for a couple of hours between the end of FPO and usually the start tee time for the third from last MPO card. That ruins my viewing experience. Yes, obviously I could watch something else, run errands, or work in the yard, or practice putting, or whatever, but the reality is that once DGN goes dark and I am forced to find something else to do, it's lost my attention. I think that's true for most viewers, especially those who are more casual fans. Lots of fan favorite players aren't always on the top few cards, and lots of amazing shots get no coverage. So here are Chris's solutions. Number 1, put one camera crew on the course's signature hole and park them there all day. Every card from the first FPO card to the final MPO card would get at least coverage on one hole, and the crew wouldn't have to lug their gear around from hole to hole. During the gap between the end of FPO and the start of MPO, we could at least see live coverage of the MPO undercards playing the signature hole. We would also see highlights from FPO undercards from earlier in the day. Obviously, 3+ cameras would be ideal, but even if we just had a camera besides the tee and one by the basket, it would be better than nothing. I realize adding personnel adds cost, so even unmanned stationary cameras might be an option if they could be positioned properly. Number 2, alternatively, do something like a halftime show or Sports Center type content between the FPO and MPO coverage. Give us highlights, news, best shots from recent tournaments, etc. Anything to keep the viewer's attention so that we don't wander away from our screen and can enjoy a full day of uninterrupted coverage. A combination of this plus my first idea would be really cool. Josh, what do you think?
I actually really agree. The first time I read this email, I was like, I don't know if it's that big of a deal. And then I kind of paid attention to it in recent weekends. And it kind of drives me nuts because not only are you talking about 6 hours of disc golf, right? Which already is a time commitment if, as Chris says, you're just going to plop down on the couch. But the problem is that, I have my 3 hours for the FPO round. And then, like he says, you have to wait two or some odd hours before you get the MPO round. And that takes effectively your entire Sunday, especially on Sunday, right? If I'm going to sit and watch full coverage live, both rounds or both divisions, it's going to be on the Sunday final day. It effectively kills your Sunday. And that 2+ hours, I really think, number one, I like the ideas of some of the things that he proposes for the in between, but I also think you need to do better. And this is a critique that I think tournaments are aware of and are working on it, but you need to just better manage the flow of players on the course and the timing, because backups but I mean, for tournaments that have MPO divisions of 100 people, 150 people, it's literally impossible to get your MPO lead card starting at the end of the FPO lead card. Just mathematically, you can't do it. And so I don't know what exactly the solution is in order to shorten that gap. I like the idea of having a halftime show and other highlights. But at the same time, if I know that the halftime show and random hole coverage of the signature hole is 2+ hours, I just don't feel like I'm any more likely to tune in for that. I mean, I already use NFL halftimes to go get food or do something else. So, I'm probably going to do the exact same thing, especially if I know it's 2+ hours. So I agree that with the problem and the points on the problem, I don't know if I think the solutions are adequate, though.
It's an interesting situation. I mean, I think the solution in my mind, Josh, is this. You probably keep it similar for the opening rounds. And you know what? That's okay, because when you watch the opening of rounds of the Masters, starts at a weird time. You can only see certain cards. You can't really watch the whole thing. And then there's a broadcast later in the day that mixes live action with, sort of recorded action from earlier into one show.
Yep.
And so let's think about the constraints. Okay. So obviously, I think it's very clear that what they used to do, which was one continuous show, was worse than it is now. Because I don't want to watch only the back nine of FPO unencumbered. I want to watch the whole round for both MPO and FPO. So that's one constraint, right? I mean, maybe some people disagree with that, but I find it incredibly annoying as a viewer and as a broadcaster to have to jump back and forth between MPO and FPO happening at the same time. It sucks. I think it sucks for fans of both of the divisions. So that we can, that's a constraint. Number two, you have the on the ground physical constraints of the camera operators being out on the course for 3 hours and then needing to have a break before they go back out on the course for another 3 hours. This is a constraint. Now, perhaps you say, well, they should hire another group of camera operators and buy a whole new set of cameras and everything else. It's an argument to be made. I just don't know if we're there yet. I know that DGN has grown. I know that disc golf has grown, but that is a significant expense to ask them to undertake. Very significant. So what is the solution here? And then you also have the broadcasters, and giving the broadcasters a break from a 7-hour show is probably a good idea. Again,
solution, you need different commentators for MPO FPO.
I basically agree with that as somebody who does broadcasting. It's true. You do need different ones.
I don't care if you have the break, you still need two different sets of commentators. But anyway, that's beside the point. Keep going.
I mean, I'm with you. I'm 100% with you. So what can you do? Because I do think conceptually, the idea of having a single broadcast that gives you full coverage of both the FPO and MPO rounds, where the downtime between those rounds is more 20-ish minutes or something, as opposed to, 2 hours, that is more along the lines of what we should be striving for. So what is the solution? I think the solution is this. Tournaments become 4 rounds. You cut after the 3rd round, which gives you far fewer players on the course, which allows you to get your MPO lead card out on the course at the right time following FPO's finish. And then you focus on having this not condensed necessarily, but single unified broadcast specifically for the final round. Early days, you do it the same as it is now. You have the FPO, take the break, MPO. That's fine, right? But for Sunday, when it's going to be on YouTube and you want people fully engaged and you're trying to maximize the audience and everything else, that's when you say, okay, we're going to have a cut. That means we're going to have, way fewer players on the course, which means that we can get through it in a way that makes sense. And maybe you do MPO, FPO, right? If that makes it work better because there's fewer players in FPO, so they play second. There's a lot of things to think about with this, but that would make sense and would allow you to do something. So like, let's say you're getting the end of the FPO round and you have however many cameras. You don't really need all those cameras on 18. So you have an extra camera operator or two who are not working the FPO round. They step in, they grab the cameras from two of the ops, and they get back over onto the course to go start shooting the MPO players who are already out there. Not the lead card yet, but they're ready to go. You start pulling some stuff into replay, and when the FPO is done, you take a break, you come back, you do some booth analysis, and then you get back out on the course and you start seeing some shots.
Yep.
And then you can see some shots, and then you can go out to break. You can come back in, and you can reopen with a tease and do the whole top of the show for MPO. But you haven't really taken a break. Like, it's been continuous coverage, and maybe you have new commentators step into the booth. Great, that's fine. But then you have this one continuous single broadcast that still shows you the entirety, uninterrupted coverage of both FPO and MPO. I think this would be a very smart model to attempt, and see how it goes, because I don't know if I totally agree with the premise that like somehow DGN has lost my attention by taking a break. Like, I'm just going to go do something else. And that, it's for the diehards. For the diehards. Like, I think I'm not going to watch the 1 p.m. football games, the 4:25 football games, and the Sunday night football game all back to back to back almost any weeks, right? I'm going to watch the 49ers, and I'm going to watch one or two of the other marquee games. And I'm probably going to not just sit on my couch all day and watch football. Same with disc golf. Like, it's rare that I'm going to sit and just plop down and watch nothing but live disc golf for like the entirety of it. So anyway, it's a long answer.
I actually have one other proposal that I think would be really fun, and it would help attract new viewers, because let's be frank, if you want to get somebody involved in the sport, how often do you say, oh, let's watch the live coverage of this tournament? Buckle up. You're here for 3.5 hours, right? Make sure you've got your snacks and everything ready. It's hard to do, right? Most people typically show post-produced, and that's how they introduce people to the sport. What if DGN was to purchase the rights to GK Pro skins and run that in the interim and do that as your intermission? And it's still available post-produced, but you have it on Sunday if you want to watch skins. It's not something that you have to like sit and focus on, but you can kind of have in the background. It's a different flavor. Like, I would love that to be a part of the Sunday that I could then pull people in and be like, hey, look at this. Like, come over and watch disc golf on Sunday. GK Pro skins are happening.
I think there's options for like airing something, and so you have a nonstop broadcast of content. But like, for me, if I know that the MPO lead card starts at 4 and the FPO is done at 2:15, and they're going to show me, hole 7 coverage for an hour and a half, or they're going to show me GK skins or whatever, I'm not going to watch that. I'm out. I'll be back at 4. See ya. Like, who is really clamoring to sit and watch, some non-tournament related thing? I don't know. I think it's tricky.
I think that the skins. I mean, how many views does the skins?
I'm not saying that people wouldn't want to watch the skins, but like if I can watch it on GK Pro on my own time, I don't need to have it force fed to me during the broadcast.
That's fair.
But maybe it debuts. I don't know. I see your point.
I think you debut there, and then then you can't complain about spoilers. Everyone's like, gotta watch it on Sunday, otherwise it's not spoilers.
We got one more, Josh.
Anyway,
what we got?
Yeah, last one comes from Nathan, and he says, I think this references Eagle's last YouTube video. Did you see how many people didn't know who Eagle was when he went to some of his local courses to give fans a free disc? Not sure if this is a good or a bad sign of the sport. Makes me wonder how many people just play the sport and not really care about the professional side. To me, if it wasn't for the professional tour and players, I wouldn't love the game as much as I do. I love the content that the tour and the players bring to the sport.
Now, obviously, the people listening and watching the Upshot right now, make sure you subscribe and like and give us that review, are not an audience to which this applies. But there is a vast universe of players who know nothing about the pro side of the sport. Vast. Is it good or bad? It's good. You want participation, and you want to have an addressable market that is bigger than what you currently have. Pro Tour knows that they can convert these people into fans. The PDGA, like how many people play versus our PDGA members? It's probably 10-1.
Yeah.
Maybe more. It's not bad at all. Like, not everybody's going to want to get into watching 6 hours of live disc golf on Sundays, you know? Like that, and that's just fine. I don't think Eagle has any problems when some people don't know who he is. Like, some people are just like, hey, let's go do the frolf. You're always going to have those kinds of people. But maybe they meet Eagle and they're like, who is this guy? Was he giving me a disc? Okay, this is cool. Like, what's this guy's name? Eagle McMahon. And they go home and they Google him. And then maybe they watch click in on YouTube and see the European Open final round. All of a sudden they become a fan. That's how this happens. A lot of it's organic.
Yep.
I mean, how many people listening to this
got
into disc golf, like professional scene, because they got algorithmed a Jomez video?
That's exactly right. Yeah. I think, let me think. The way I got into the pro side, I think I went to a pro shop. I saw on Google that there was a store that sold discs. And I went, I think it was the Infinite Discs in Pocatello. I don't remember what year they opened, so it might have been that. But I went to a disc shop, and they had Jomez up on the TV. And I was like, what the heck is going on here? And that's how I found it. So I played for 2-3 years recreationally before I ever knew that there was a pro side.
I knew there was a pro side of disc golf, but I didn't pay any attention to it. And I remember, like, somehow I was like, became aware, because like obviously like I'm in the disc world and have been for a long time,
right?
So I was like aware of USDGC one year, and I was like, oh, let me check out the live coverage. And I remember it was like Terry and Johnny doing a coverage back in the day at USDGC 2015 or something like that, and tuned in, and there were like 6,500 people watching, and I was like, damn, that's kind of a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like maybe this is something that I should be like learning more about, and that's how I got started into it. So send us your stories. How did you find out about professional disc golf? Email us, upshot@ultiworld.com. We'd love to hear from you. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, brand new segment. Don't go anywhere. The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport. And you know what? If you want to get the custom pack that you envision in your mind's eye, the pack of your dreams, you can do it at any time. Go to pounddiscgolf.com and you can get your custom Octothorpe, your custom Octahall, your custom Carlton, your custom toolbox, And their custom pack builders are now open all the time. No more waiting for drops or hoping that you get lucky. You can just go build your pack. You can tinker with it for a while before you hit the order button, but you can check it all out on their website, and you can just design it exactly how you want, from the zippers to the main flap to the bottom of the pack, exactly what you envision. PoundDiscGolf.com. Welcome back to the Upshot. It is time for a new segment that we call Bag or Bust, presented by Infinite Discs. Infinite Discs is the world's largest disc retailer, and they also have the world's largest disc selection. You can check out their website, infinitediscs.com, to find basically any disc that exists on the earth. And so we are partnering with Infinite to start doing some disc reviews. And I know everybody's clamoring for me and Josh, our AM selves, to give you those disc reviews. But you know what? We're going to do it. We'll see what people think. And please give us your feedback, because we want this to be fun and useful and interesting for you. And you know what? It feels good in the hand. That's what I always want to tell everybody. So let's get right to it. Josh, tell us about this week's disc.
Yeah, we decided to start with an Infinite mold to honor our sponsor. We went with the Sea Glow Blend Chariot. This is their neutral to stable mid-range, 5501. Previous iterations have been 5502. Or 4501. The numbers have kind of changed based on the runs. That's one thing I really appreciate about Infinite Disc molds, is that they'll actually print the run number. And so when you're looking for a particular mold that you really enjoyed a specific run of, it's easy to find, you know what run it was a part of. And so that's something that I think Infinite does really well. But today we are talking about the Chariot, which I had never thrown before our Bag or Bust segment. I've had mine and been throwing it for about 3 weeks. Charlie, I know you haven't had quite as long because you've been on the road. What are your initial thoughts?
So let me just quickly first talk about what's the concept here. Basically, Bag or Bust, we're going to tell you whether this is a disc that we are going to put in our bag or that it's not going to make the bag, and we're going to talk about why. We're not going to belabor the point. We're going to get kind of down to the details as quickly as we can and make it useful for you. For reference, I throw max probably 375, 350, 375. I throw a mid-range like this probably out to about 300 feet. Josh throws 425, 450.
Yep.
And
425, yeah.
425. And how far do you throw your mids?
I throw mids out to about 330 is where I start looking at a distance driver.
Great.
Or a fairway driver. Yeah.
So here's my thoughts. So first of all, I already bag discs in this basic category. I have a MAO 3, which is 5500, and I also have a Fuse, which I think is 5.6 -1.0, so a little more understable. And I've actually been kind of waffling between those discs about like which one do I really want to keep in my bag, because I don't really feel like I need both of them. This is right into the camp. So right away, I'm going to come out and I'm going to say bag, but with the caveat that I haven't really figured out which of the discs in this slot that I want to keep in the bag. Immediate thoughts on the Chariot. If I throw it flat, it's going to ride straight for like 250, and it's going to have a pretty consistent, gentle fade finish. If I throw it on hyzer, it will hang on the hyzer the whole time. I couldn't get it really to flip up to flat at all. The release out of my hand determined the angle that the disc would fly on. If I threw it Annie, I could get a little bit more distance with the flex, but it would pretty consistently fight its way out of the anhyzer and still give a gentle finish, very gentle. It is slightly more stable for me than a MAO 3, slightly more. I think it's a pretty similar disc on that side of things. And so I'm going to basically have to decide, do I want something that's a little bit more understable like the Fuse, or do I want something that's a little bit more straight like the MAO 3, or do I want something with a little bit more stability at the finish? There's trade-offs across those, I think, but this is going to be in the bag and getting tested, and I'm going to try to get a feel for like when I'm actually out on the course, what am I reaching for? And I think it's going to be in that camp. The problem that I have with this disc, Josh, there's kind of a sharp, like little baby
flashing.
micro bead / flashing on the bottom edge. I found it very uncomfortable to throw forehands with. I also just don't know if it's an appropriate disc for me to throw forehand with because the lack of spin on the forehand was creating some more wonkiness with release angles, and I was like sometimes turning and burning it. This is not as versatile a disc as a Buzz. Like a Buzz is going to remain my primary like workable mid-range that's in my bag. This is very specifically for shots where I need a very straight line and a very gentle finish. To me, like, is this going to get in over my Mako 3, which I've thrown a long time? I don't know. I think it's going to come down to like when I'm actually out on the course, like, do I want a little bit more finish or not? The Mako 3 feels a little bit more like I can put more angle control and like do more turnover shots. This is going to want to fight out a little bit more. So it's just slightly more stable. So good disc, like it fine. It is not a do-it-all shot shaping type disc like a Buzz for me or like a Rock for a lot of people. This is specifically for shots where I need straight. And if you're looking for a straight flying disc, perfectly happy with this, but I wouldn't throw a forehand.
So for those of you who remember in the bag that we did last year, I used to have a smattering of rocks, and my brother-in-law made me really commit to trying out the Buzz and using it, no more than just throwing it once or twice in a field. And I have since been converted to the Buzz as a mid-range. So I love the Buzz. That's what's in my bag now, and I have a handful of them in varying stability. I have a lot of people who I know throw the Chariot as their primary mid-range and bag 1 or 2 or 3 Chariots, largely because infinite from this area, so you have a lot of players who throw a lot of infinite stuff. So the Chariot is for a lot of people their primary mid-range, and I was excited to see kind of what that hype was about and whether or not it would fill that slot. I don't think it's a primary mid-range. I would not say that I would build my mid-range slot around the Chariot because, like you said, it doesn't feel terribly versatile. And I found that when I first was throwing it, I threw it just like my Buzz, and it was very wrong. I threw it into the woods way too many times because of that. I then started throwing it a little bit more and playing with its stability, more on hyzers, more on kind of the flex to fall out. So I still like to use my Buzz or a Buzz SS for a hyzer flip to flat if I want straight, or just straight with a little bit of finish. But I found that this disc was better to rely on the stability of it instead, because the Buzz I don't think has the same stability. It doesn't have the same fight out of an Annie. It doesn't have the same
Interesting.
hyzer shot.
My Buzz is the opposite. It's
really
more stable than this. Like
interesting
by a significant margin.
That was I wonder what Buzz. I've got an ESP Buzz that is fairly new, and this was like I've got a hole that is 340 feet. That is straight, and then it's tucked up to the left in the woods. And I was like, oh, this disc is perfect for it. And I threw it, and I was like 20 feet short and in the woods because I underestimated the stability this has. This is more stable than any of the Buzzes I have in my bag. And so I find this to be a nice in between my overstable disc and my neutral Buzzes, because I feel like it has the single shot shape that I like and I use. I've had this in my bag for almost a month now. I've used it at a tournament. I play with it. It's going to stay in my bag. I don't know if I quite use it enough to justify it, but it's kind of like a comfort disc now where a hole that I really would just prefer to go with the hyzer. I still need the distance. I don't want something that's going to skip a lot. So I don't want my overstable mid-range. And it's a little bit windy. Maybe I don't trust my Buzz as much. So I just reach in and grab the Chariot. It's kind of like a safety blanket for me in my bag. And I use it probably once or twice per round. Not nearly as much as my Buzzes, but I have to admit it. I like it enough for those shots, especially, long sweeping hyzer shots, that it's going to stay in my bag. So I think that's both of us saying we're going to bag the Chariot.
Yeah, I think my Buzz is in Z plastic.
Okay.
So I'm, it's fairly stable, like,
Interesting.
which I prefer because it means that I can get a little bit more versatility out of
Right.
it. But yes, this will be getting tried out alongside the Fuse and the Mako 3. So I kind of have 3 fighting for that straight mid spot. So let us know your thoughts on our bag or bust segment. We've got lots more discs literally ready to go. We're already starting to work on the next ones, and we hope to make this a useful segment for you. So there it is, the Glow Sea Blend Chariot. You can find it on infinitediscs.com.
One thing I will add, Infinite is one of the best stamp games in town. I mean, incredible. They just look.
We got the
amazing.
alien riding the double horse thing going on here.
Riding the chariot, perhaps, Charlie?
I mean, yeah, okay. Yes. It's on the chariot. I like the sparkle foil in the stamp here.
Yeah.
So
The blue color, the blue and pink
it's nice
color.
It's nice.
Yeah, it's a nice disc.
I'm not a big aesthetics guy. I'm more of a how does this disc go down the fairway for me?
The better they look, the farther they go, Charlie.
Maybe that's true. Maybe I'll be converted. All right, let's talk about the Mid-America Open. It's coming up this weekend. It's a Disc Golf Pro Tour Silver Series event. It's definitely starting to get to the point in the season where the Silver Series is really the Silver Series. You don't have a lot of the big names coming out, and a lot of the top players are indeed sitting out this weekend. Now, here's the interesting thing about the Mid-America Open. It's held in Missouri, on the crown jewel of Missouri disc golf, Harmony Bends, John Houck designed course. They didn't have it here last year because there's drainage problems, and they had a lot of rain, and it was like basically unplayable. So they had to switch to like a much worse course for last year's event. But they're back on Harmony Bends, which is generally considered like a top 10 course in the United States. It is a really good course, and I think with a little bit of work, like this should really become a course that's on permanent tour that we see on the Elite Series. And I don't know if that's in the cards, but I guess I'm glad at least that it gets a tour stop of some kind. And so your top players registered for this year's event in MPO, Gannon Burr at 1039 rating is the top rated player. Kyle Klein, Drew Gibson, Joel Freeman, Double G, AB, Isaac Robinson, Bradley Williams, some of the other top players in attendance. Over in FPO, Sarah Hokum is your top rated player at 960. Natalie Ryan, Kat Mertz, Jessica Weiss, Holland Handley, Juliana Korver, Rebecca Cox, Holly Finley, some other top players in attendance. It should be an interesting one, Josh. Harmony Bends, incredible use of the terrain. In some ways, it feels like a nice follow-up course to Toboggan because there is some elevation and some like interesting stuff going on with the holes. And if the weather's nice, it is just going to be so spectacularly beautiful. Like this is one of the most scenic courses, I think, on tour. And I'm looking forward to it. I'll be on the DGN coverage on Sunday for the final round.
It's a good Silver Series, and I think that it's timed well. I mean, it's a course, and this probably, like you said, it deserves a tour stop, and I completely agree. I think this is a really good use of the Silver Series to showcase excellent courses in the region that make good in-between stops for events that have long been staples of the tour, and provide a nice opportunity, but not necessity. Because I think the biggest thing you have to do if you're going to do these Silver Series, I think there's an advantage to having some really, really popular courses on the Silver Series that may, and I don't know if Harmony Bends, it's a little bit short on the MPO side, 9,000 feet. So it's not their longest one, but given the woods, it's kind of expected. For courses, I think that as courses no longer are, and I don't know if Harmony Bends qualifies as this, but as courses don't match up to the standard of the professional level game that we have today, but are really iconic, excellent courses. Think De La Viega, for example, is one use that they used of it this year. I think Silver Series is a great opportunity to encourage players to go play those courses that they enjoy. It's exciting for fans to see, and it ensures that courses that deserve to be featured in some way or another are going to be on the tour. And so I'm excited this is on there. I think it's going to be a good weekend. I'll be honest, I'm probably only going to watch Sunday. I'm catching up on work from COVID, and it does suffer a little bit on the timing in that we went major, D-Glow, Now you have the Silver Series and then Ledgestone. And so this is going to be kind of a nice break weekend for me, as is a lot of players, as is evident by the registration.
Yeah.
But it's nice to see it featured in this way.
So let's make our picks. We pick our winners at Silver Series events. In FPO, Josh, I'm going to go with Kat Merch. She's been close. I think this is a great weekend for her to get a win. She's one of the top-rated players there. I think she looked really sharp at European Open. And I think has a great chance to win. Of course, going to have some challenge. Natalie Ryan could go back to back, but I think Natalie's going to put it in cruise control a little bit, as would I.
Yeah,
following a win. So I'm taking Kat Merch. Who you got?
I have Sarah Hokum. Sarah has kind of been overshadowed this season. Just with the incredible competition, but she took 6th at D-Glow and has won a Silver Series this season as well, won the Masters Cup at De La, and then also took 5th at the Beaver State Fling. So she just Sarah is consistent, which is good. We know what Sarah does, and I really think that this is a good weekend, given especially how limited the field is, that I think she's going to remind us that she's not going anywhere. She's still really good.
Taking the top-rated player, really going out on a limb there, Josh.
Look, Charlie, points are points, and I'm going to double down on it. I've got Gannonburr to win it at MPO, top-rated on both sides. You're going to look silly, if I get 10 points, though, Charlie. Gannon's he's the highest-rated player, and he's played like it this year. And I think there are some players who can challenge him, some young players who also will have the opportunity to shine a little bit. But Gannon's hungry. He wants to get some more wins. Hasn't also won the Masters Cup. So I'm taking both Masters Cups winners to win the Mid-America Open. Wouldn't that be cool? But just a great player all around.
Give me Kyle Klein.
Well, this course.
Kyle Klein.
I like it.
He's heating up, folks. He's heating up. He's ready to turn. He's ready to get on fire before we head into Worlds. I think he's going to take it down this weekend.
I like it.
You got an over-under for me, I hear.
I do have an over-under for you. I went back and forth on the line for this over-under a lot, but winning MPO rating, so the rating of the player wins, not their round ratings, 1031.5 over under. The reason I set it at that line is because I was looking at the names and I was like, if I give you 1030, I'm really nervous about my odds. I want Isaac Robinson on the under. So he does not get grouped in with the rest of the top crew.
I mean, I have to take over because I think Kyle Klein is going to win, but I do think that there's a very good chance that, somebody from the 1020s is going to win this tournament. I mean, maybe Chandler Kramer, 1017, is going to win this tournament.
Maybe.
But I gotta just stick with my gut here, and that we're going to see one of those top guys take it down. So I'll take the over.
So original, so exciting, Charlie.
Well, no, I already beat you to that joke.
Yeah, I'm making fun of your joke.
You want to see me score another point? Because I'm gonna.
I went back and forth a lot, but I'm glad I'm glad I've got Isaac Robinson in my crew. Like, if give me the Prodigy boys for this weekend.
So if you want to check out all of our picks from the entire season and keep up on the leaderboard, you can go over to discgolf.ultiworld.com/upshot-picks, and you'll be able to find all of our picks. I'm going to go update it right now. So thank you so much for tuning in. We will be back with you next week for Tuesday's episode, and looking forward to getting ready for the Ledgestone Insurance Open as we continue our march towards Worlds. For Josh Mansfield, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long, and we'll talk to you next week right here on The Upshot.